Today is September 24th, 2013, and we are interviewing Stephen Dengler. Is that how you say your last name? At the Illinois State Library. Steve is 64 years old, having been born on June 14th, 1949. My name is Regina Corthals, and I'll be the interviewer. Steve, could you state for the recording what war and branch of service you served in?
Vietnam War, United States Navy.
Okay. And what was your rank?
I was a boiler tender, 3rd class.
Okay. And where did you serve?
I served in mostly the Western Pacific and Southeast Asia, and our ship was home ported out of Long Beach, California.
Okay, these are a few questions I'm going to read if you want to kind of elaborate on all of it. Did you get immersed in the culture where you were stationed? If so, how? And what, if any, mementos did you bring back with you?
I don't thinking about getting immersed in the culture. I mean, we were just on a ship. I tried to pick something up everywhere I went when I was overseas, and like piece of furniture or art, things like from the Philippines, things from Japan.
And what was your job assignment?
My job assignment was the fire room on the ship. We maintained the boilers and pressure, steam pressure to the turbines, to the engines. We maintained the evaporators to make fresh water out of seawater. And we took care of all the pumps, feed pumps, oil pumps, for the engine room.
Did you see combat?
We did not. We were in the area. We did get too close to the coast one time in up near China, and the Chinese came out to observation planes, and they flew real low and real. They were giving us the eye. We weren't supposed to be there, so we had to leave.
So you didn't have any casualties in your unit? No one sustained any injuries?
Well, we were, where we were at, people would get hurt all the time. Where we worked at, there was very hot, working with high pressure steam. People got burnt. You dropped some, people got fingers smashed, or fell down a ladder and gashed their head. So it was a very dangerous job.
Were you awarded any medals or citations?
I have 6.
Well, do you want to talk about them and like why you received them, what you received them for?
Well, we got the National Defense. I've got that, and that is for being in the military during a time of war. That's awarded to everybody. It's a red, white, and yellow ribbon, little stripes of blue in it. And anybody that's in the military during wartime gets that one. Then I had the Good Conduct ribbon, which is self-explanatory. Had to do 4 years without getting in trouble, which I did. Had the Vietnam Service ribbon, which was issued from 1959 through the end of hostilities in 74. And it's a green and white ribbon with a little scroll on it. You had to be in what we used to call the zone, combat zone, to be issued that. And then Vietnam, that was the Vietnam Service. The next one was Vietnam Campaign. And I have the Vietnam Campaign ribbon with 2 little bronze stars on it. That's for so many days being in a war zone, you get that ribbon. Well, we were in there several times. Therefore, they added a little star for more time. Like I made three trips over there. So I got the original one from 1970 and then one for 71, 72. We weren't over there continuously, but you got it for so many days in the zone. And then we have a unit citation, a meritorious unit citation, the whole ship got for when we went to the aid of another ship. It was a civilian ship that was on fire, and we provided some people to help put the fire out on that ship. And so the whole ship got that. That ribbon's green, yellow, and blue, I think. And then we got another ribbon from the government of Vietnam for we were over there for Operation Thunderhead, which was I think 1972, where we were providing support to the carriers, and they were trying to bomb or get in there to get a prisoner of war camp, trying to free some prisoners of war, and they called that Operation Thunderhead. We were in support of another ship that was active in that campaign. So we got another little ribbon. It's called the Vietnam Cross of Gallantry or something for Operation Thunderhead. So altogether, I've got 6 ribbons.
And what was the ship that you were on?
I was on 2 ships.
Okay.
First ship I was on was USS Mars, and its designation was AFS-1, and it was, so that means that the A is for auxiliary, and it was food and supplies and stores, and they also hauled ammunition and bombs. It was a supply ship, and I was on that ship for about a year, and they resupplied other ships. We had 2 helicopters, and they would fly supplies over back and forth to other ships. And I was on that ship with my brother. And then I transferred off that ship to the USS Mississippian AO-105. And that ship is an auxiliary also, but it was a super tanker, Navy super tanker. And it was resupplied fuel for the other ships for their engine rooms, Navy black oil. We also supplied jet fuel, aviation gas, which was highly volatile. And our capacity was 6 million gallons, is what we hauled. So when the ship was full, there would be 38 feet of the ship underneath the water line. You couldn't see when it was full. That's how big it was. 700 feet.
Did you have the same job on both ships?
Same job.
Same job.
One ship was newer. The USS Mars was a newer ship, and everything was easier. It was only 3 or 4 years old. Everything was automatic. You just set the dials and flip a button. And the second ship I was on, Mississippian, was built during World War II. So it was pretty old when I went on it. And then it was as soon as the year after I got out of the Navy, they decommissioned it. So
Do you want to show your pictures of
yeah,
what
I
you
have. Get my glasses here.
Sure. And the camera thing is right there if you just want to
Okay.
kind of hold them up there.
Tell me when it's where it needs to be.
You can keep going. Okay, that's good.
That picture was taken in June of 1972 in the fire room on the Mississippian, and the little guy, I'm in the middle. The little guy to my right is Michael Doherty, and the big guy on the other side is Chris Clemens, and we were on watch in the fire room. And I didn't have a shirt on. We were working on the boilers that day. It was so hot we took our shirts off. Normal temperatures down there would be around 130.
Ooh.
Let me go back and I'll find that other one, the ship.
Yeah.
The ship was decommissioned, but it ran as a civilian ship till 1989, and then they put it out of service in 1989, and they took it into a mothball fleet in California. And in January 2012, this is in January 2012, they towed the ship to down to the Panama Canal to Brownsville, Texas, and they cut it up for scrap. And I have one of the portholes off the ship in my garage at home.
Oh, that's
It's
interesting.
solid brass.
Was there a reason why you chose the Navy?
Yeah, I didn't want to go to the Marine Corps.
Oh, okay.
I was caught up in the draft, like a lot of other guys, and I got my draft notice in February of 1969, and said, well, if they want me that bad, I'm going to go, but I'm going to go where I want to go. So, and I was kind of close to my Uncle John, and he was a Navy guy, and that was kind of the reason I went down and joined the Navy. And 2 weeks after I joined, my brother went in, and we ended up serving together on the same ship for almost a year. I think that's all the pictures I have of Navy stuff on there.
So did you have a problem with any kind of seasickness, or what did they do to remedy that?
There's no cure for it.
There isn't?
Yeah, no, I got seasick one time. We pulled out of Japan. It was my first time on the ship. I hadn't been on there a couple days. And we pulled out of Japan. We headed to Vietnam, and we had to go between Taiwan, which Formosa is part of China now.
Mm-hmm.
There's the Taiwan Straits, and we went through a real bad storm, and I got sick. And everybody else was sick too, so I didn't feel so bad. But
That's why I wondered if it was a ship full of everybody seasick, or what they did to prepare anybody.
well,
or-
you eat a lot of crackers
Really?
because they when you're moving around a lot like that, your stomach's sloshing and then you get to feeling queasy. So we just ate a lot of crackers, and I got sick that one time, but I never got sick after that. I got close to being sick because we went through a lot of bad weather. We went through a couple of typhoons. They wouldn't even let people go outside yet. They dogged all the doors down. Everybody's told to stay inside because we were in 30-foot, 40-foot seas. And the ships were big, but they really took a beating.
Did they ever have anybody that could never develop a stomach for it, and they would have to go someplace else, or did they put them someplace else if they couldn't be on the ship?
No, I never knew of anybody like that.
I was kind of curious.
My father-in-law was in the Navy in Korea, and he said when they went over to, they left New York and went over to Europe, he was on a destroyer, and he said he was sick for 12 days.
Oh.
The whole time, but he said once after that he never, I heard of guys getting so sick that they just about die from it. They couldn't eat nothing. But it's always, a lot of it's in your head. If you think you're going to be sick, you're going to be sick.
Yeah, no, none of the superior officers or anything were ever mean to anybody. Like
No.
they figured it was a genuine, they were just seasick and not.
Oh yeah. Well,
Kinda get
you
out of
knew
it.
when they did be a little green around the gills.
I see. Well, I was just kind of interested in that. Okay, so can you share any battle planning with us? Were you ever privy to any of that kind of stuff
Nah,
of
it
what you
was-
guys were doing?
Our main job was resupply oil to supply oil and jet fuel, aviation gas. Sometimes we hauled bombs, stuff like that. We resupplied we would always travel with an aircraft carrier. We would be part of a carrier air group. It'd be an aircraft carrier, and then their escorts, which would usually be a cruiser, and then 2 or 3 destroyers, and then the supply ships. So there'd be about 10 or 12 ships in that carrier group. And you would resupply, of course, the carrier is the main one. Because he could resupply his destroyer group off of their stuff. But we'd have the carrier on one side, and we would be in the middle, and on the right would be the carrier. And we're moving the whole time, and we're resupplying oil to each one of them. And to the carriers mainly, it was jet fuel. We would go out for 2, 3, 4 weeks. We could stay out there. We could offload the ship in 6 hours. But we always had another oiler came out and resupplied us, topped us off, because you had your station. You were the station oiler, and you stayed down there. The longest we stayed down there was about 45 days, and that was right off the coast. And we would sometimes pull into Da Nang or Vung Tau, and the little river boats would come out, and we supplied those guys. And we had a store on the ship. Guys could buy tape recorders and cameras. And they had candy and soda and their work clothes. So they didn't have that on there, so they come on our ship and used our stuff. And but when we pulled in the harbor there, we always had to be out there by dark because they got pretty bright at night. A lot of fireworks going on. We would stay about 20 miles off the coast at night, and then we go in a little closer in the daytime.
Interesting. How did you get along with the officers and your fellow soldiers?
Sailors.
Sailors.
I got along fine with everybody. I mean, we had a few officers, I didn't really care for, but you look at it back at the time, they weren't, some of them weren't much older than me. 'Cause I was 20 years old when I went to service. Uh, some of those guys were 90-day wonders. They just,
Were a lot of the people you with drafted also not there necessarily because they wanted to be there, or by the time you got to what you were doing, everybody had kind of accepted this is what we're doing, and everything was pretty
uh, well,
working like it should have been.
back then when I was in, it was about 50-50 on, everybody was enlisted in the Navy. There was no draftees.
Okay.
But about half of them were reserves. And what that meant is they did their 2 years of active duty. That's all they had to do. I did 4 years active duty, 2 years inactive. They had 4 years inactive. So when you came back from overseas, or when you did your 2 years, you got out, uh, you would have to go to, once a month, you would have to go to a reserve meeting. But being as they had been in Vietnam, they didn't have to go to reserve meetings. They had already been in combat. So I did 2 years. I got out of the Navy, and then I went back. A couple years later, I went to reserves, and then the reserve center closed down, moved to St. Louis. So I switched over from the Navy Reserves to the Illinois National Guard, and I went in the Illinois National Guard as a medic, because I had already had some paramedic training and stuff. And I stayed there for about 6 years, so I had 12 years total military before I got out.
Did you feel pressure, stress, or anxiety? I don't know if that's in general or going in, or were there times where I know you had said sometimes you kind of see them flying around you.
Well, yeah, we only had them zoom in on us, buzz us that one time. But my feelings was at that time they were using a lot of heat-seeking missiles, heat-seeking rockets. They're gonna, if they shoot something at you, they can shoot it from wherever, how far away. Where we were at was the hottest place on the ship, and that's where it's gonna hit. So where we worked at also, we were down below the water line. I mean, where we were in the ship, we were below water all the time. It was it was 130 degrees down there, but you could walk over and feel the bulkhead, and it had condensation on it, so cold.
Yeah, the only thing I can garner a reference for is the movie Titanic, where they're all down there shoveling stuff into their, and how hot it was.
Yeah,
and
it was
how,
really hot.
Yeah, so that's my only, was it anything even close to that? Because it's the only thing that I have as a reference.
It was hot. We had the dirtiest job on the ship.
Yeah.
We were called the Black Gang. We didn't see daylight for days. Sometimes we didn't get outside for 2 or 3 days. We were all pale. We were all skinny because we sweated so bad.
Sure.
My average weight when I was in the Navy was about 130.
Yeah, you did look like you're not very big in that picture.
Very big.
Did you keep a personal diary at all, or any kind of?
No, I bought a little tape recorder. I bought 2 of them, and I sent one of them to my girlfriend, and we sent tapes back and forth, and ended up, we got married. We've been married 42 years, and I still got that tape recorder, one of them. I don't know which one we got, whether hers or mine, and we still got all the tapes in a little box out in the garage, and I've been supposed to get them to somebody to make them, and we just talked. You know, you had to sit on the deck at night when it was dark, be nice out to sea and cool, and just talk in a microphone. And it did take 2 or 3 days to fill up one reel, and I'd send it home. She'd send another one back. And
how long did that take to get from you to her?
Probably a week.
Oh, that's not
We
bad.
didn't have to pay for our mail. If we were over there, our mail was free. It was like World War II. They had the V mail.
Yeah.
We had just marked free on there, and they flew our mail off every day, took it in Saigon.
Can you tell me about a couple of your most memorable experiences? Exciting events, or just like crazy things that happened?
The most exciting thing for me was in the Navy was when my daughter was born.
Oh.
So I got to fly home for that. I flew from the Philippines to Los Angeles, and I had my leave plan because of her due date. I wanted to be there when she was born, and martial law was going on in the Philippines, so I had a hard time getting out of the country and to fly civilian. And Got home and she already had her. And what happened was she came early. And then she got out of the hospital on that day that I came home. So she brought her to the airport, and neighbor lady had to drive her because she was so pretty sore. And I held her all the way home, and when we got her to bed, I sat her all night in that chair, and I just looked at that crib, and she was pretty tiny when she was a baby. And I had to go back 3 weeks later because our tour was not over. And we came, so then 2 months later, we came back for good. That was in around Thanksgiving, 1972. And they called me and they said, you have to go up on the deck because you're one of the new dads. So we had 11 guys on a ship that became new dads during that deployment. And I was one of them. So we got to stand on deck and be the first ones to get off.
Aww.
Because all our families were
waiting for
us down there. And I always had to work in the engine room doing that when we pulled in and out. But that day they said, no, I had to be up on the deck. And my wife was standing down on the pier, and my wife's real tiny, so she was holding her up above her head and had a real white dress. And so I got to get off and bring her back on. All the guys wanted to see her. That was pretty exciting.
Yeah, that's touching. All the, did they do that every time they came in? New dads got to go off first like that?
Every time we came back from being overseas.
Yeah, that's very sweet.
They still, that's a Navy deal.
They still do that today?
Yeah, they still do that.
Oh. That's just kind of
Our ship only had 300 people on, and so there's only 11 guys that time. But you take an
So you came back to what port did you come back to?
Long Beach, California.
Oh, so was your family like in military housing there, or
no, we weren't military. We were federal housing.
Oh.
We lived in San Pedro, California, and it was government housing owned by the federal government.
Okay.
But it was through Los Angeles County. Because we were in Los Angeles.
It wasn't on any kind of military base.
No, we were only about a mile from the base.
I see.
And most of the people in there was military or retired. Some people on welfare and stuff.
Yeah.
But it was nice. It was a nice little apartments we had.
That was sweet. And so you were able to stay in touch with your family fairly easily then?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I had a lot of family in California too. My mom's family was from California, so the first summer we were out there, my grandparents were still alive, so we got to see them a lot. And then my grandma died right after we got out there, and when I was in Vietnam, my grandpa died. And let's see, my mom had 3 sisters and a brother out there, and had a lot of cousins. So
your wife wasn't just totally alone out there?
No, so she wasn't totally alone, and she got involved with a group of some of the Navy wives, where they were through the Los Angeles County Parks and Recreation. And my wife played softball a lot in high school, so she coached a junior high age group of girls in softball for Los Angeles County Parks. And then she got to be close with some of the other Navy wives. They ran around together. And my aunts and uncles, they would come and see her. She'd go up there. When I was overseas, she would go up there and visit with my aunts and stuff. And then first got over there, she got real homesick, so she came home for about a month, and then she went back.
Is she from this area, or?
She's from here.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Okay. Did you have carry anything special with you for good luck?
Yeah, St. Christopher.
Okay. So you were on a supply ship, so you guys probably had plenty of supplies.
We had good food.
That's
first ship.
Like, what was the food like?
Yeah, the first ship was a good ship to be on because they had all the fresh food, fruits, and all that stuff. Some of that stuff would get hijacked, but case of popsicles or whatever.
Yeah.
Second ship, we had some good cooks on there. It wasn't mainly a supply ship; it was an oil ship, but we had good food.
Yeah. What was the typical meals that you guys had?
Breakfast was the same thing every day: powdered eggs and scrambled. You fix them any way you want, but you're going to get them scrambled. SOS, which is chipped beef and toast. We had a different name for it.
Sure.
sometimes we work so many hours that if you worked a 4 to 8 watch in the morning, then you had to be down there work till 8 and 4 in the afternoon. Then you had another 4 to 8 watch in the evening. You already had a 16-hour day. So when it came time for meals, we skipped a lot. Instead, just go up there and sleep for an hour.
Oh, that's probably another reason why you were so skinny, huh?
Yeah,
You weren't
and
getting
we had like a ghee dunk on the ship. It's like little cans of beans and weenies,
Oh,
and pork and beans, and candy. And
sure. That's cool. For this is about like rest and relaxation stuff. I don't know how much you guys get to do, but how did you entertain yourself? Were there entertainers that came to see your units?
we were in the Philippines once, and they had Michael Jackson 5.
Really?
But we didn't know about it. The time we pulled in that day, and they had him over there at the club, and you couldn't get near that place anyway. So, and
Oh,
that was in they had been out for about a year, I guess. We had one guy on the ship that he was talking about him. I said I'd never heard of him before. Back then, though, that's like
sure.
they had like their first songs and stuff. Most of we had the enlisted man's club in the Philippines was just like going to a club here, like a bar or whatever, and they would have local entertainment. But a lot of times we had bands from Australia and Hong Kong and Japan, but they were pretty good. They imitated a lot of other people, but some of them were pretty good.
Hmm. So, what did you do when you were on leave? Do you have times where you would like be, ported somewhere and you got to go out and
When we
explore?
pulled into a different port, I don't know, my favorite place to go was Japan. It was so pretty over there. And the climate was like it is here at home. Um, and the thing I liked about Japan was the little kids were so cute. A lot of the guys bought in Japan, but you could buy stuff pretty cheap. A lot of them bought motorcycles, brought them out on the ship, and then I bought a new stereo, and then I got my wife's set of china, which we still have in the box, never been opened.
Oh,
Uh, but there was just you could buy a lot of nice stuff over Japan. Japan was a good place to visit.
did you get out and eat their food? Did you try any of the
Oh
crazy stuff that they
yeah,
had there?
yeah. They had if you go to like to the movies over there, they have like what do they call that stuff? It's a little stick and it has like a little piece of meat on it, just like a shish kebab, but it's I'm trying to think what the octopus or squid, and they freeze dry it and do this. But you could go to the movies and get a little dish of fried rice, chicken fried rice, a little tiny bottle of wine. It cost 300 yen, about $1 our money. Japan, everything was cheap. First time I was there, it was kind of scary because they driving on the other side of the road. Never got used to that. We went to the Philippines. We did some horseback riding there. They had go-kart tracks on the base. You could ride dirt bikes on the base. If you took a tour, like in Japan, we took a tour. We took a bus to Nagasaki, where the atomic bomb was at. They took us to the factory where the China came from.
If you hold on a minute, I want to close this door. Because
Okay.
they're just being way too loud. You want to be able to hear your story, not be distracted. Okay.
Yeah, it just you could take tours. A lot of times they had tours set up for us. But every time we went to a different country, we had to sign a waiver that these are some of the rules of this country, and if you violate them, you're going to be in trouble.
Did you have any hostilities towards you guys from anybody? Anybody like not want to have you in their businesses or
No. One
Or
time
did they like you were in there spending money?
Yeah, one time we were in Japan and they had they were having some riots over there. The protests they were protesting over there that we were coming out of there and we were going down to Vietnam and we were bombing and killing and all that stuff. So they had protesters at the base, and we were at the enlisted man's club, which was off the base, and they wouldn't let us out of there. And Japanese police came out there, and they pretty much nipped that in the bud because they didn't mess around. They just got their billy clubs out and started smacking people. So but they were rioting because there was tanks and other stuff going on there too, and they didn't want us there.
Did you have anybody that was like a prankster on there, would pull pranks on people, or
Well, we all did.
everybody did? Do you have
Yeah.
any funny prank stories?
Yeah, my best friend was from Arizona. We're still in touch with each other. He's in Colorado now. He always had to read Louis L'Amour books. We passed them around each other, read books. We had little reading lights on each bunk. And Kenny would be on, if he was down on watch, there's nobody in his bed, so it was fair game. But he always had books under his pillow, Western books. And one night they went down to the galley and they got some chicken gizzards and livers and stuff. And they took the book out and put that under there. And of course, when he got off watch, he came up there about midnight and got in his bed. He reached under to grab that book, and he had a handful of that stuff. And he was not very happy. Then you would take the phones in the engine room, and the phones on the ships were all black, and we had that black oil, so they'd take oil and they'd smear it on that thing goes on your ear,
Oh,
and then they'd go on the other side and ring that phone, somebody pick it up and fire it, and they put it up there, and they'd have stuff over their face.
wow, that's funny.
We played a lot of tricks. You had to break the monotony.
Sure, that's funny. So, do you recall the day your service ended, like where you were at and how you felt about that?
Well, I couldn't get a job in California. I was trying to get a job out there. There's a lot of equal opportunity stuff back then, so applied for several jobs, couldn't get any. I stayed in the Navy a month longer than I was supposed to. And right before then, we had an earthquake, and she was wanting to come home because she didn't like the earthquakes. She was getting homesick. We'd been out there for 2 years. She hadn't seen any of her family, so we came home. The Navy moved our stuff because I was in it for 4 years. And I had a friend made a hitch. So I could tow my car home. I had a 57 Chevy at the time. And I bought a truck in California. I towed the car back. And we drove across country. And I went back to my old job at the state after I got out. But yeah, and then about a month after we moved home, I got called for a job interview in California. It's too late now. I couldn't go back. So, yeah, I got out. Gas was 32 cents a gallon on the base. Last when I left the Navy base that last time, built the truck up.
So, yeah, some of these follow-up questions are: did you resume a job or start a new career? Did you go back to school? Did you use the GI Bill to get further education?
I did not use the GI Bill, which I should have, but it was kind of hard because I was married and had a kid. I had to go back to work. I worked for the State of Illinois Department of Mental Health. Before I went in, and I came home and I went back to work, State of Illinois Department of Mental Health for about another year, and then I went to work for 7 years at Memorial Medical Center here in Springfield in the power plant area, boilers, and then I got on with the City of Auburn, and I stayed with the City of Auburn for 30 years till I retired.
Did you make any close friendships in the service? Do you continue any of those relationships? And do you attend reunions?
Yep, and yeah. I've stayed close contact with my friend from Arizona and a friend of mine from Louisiana. And that's about the only two. Well, then about 10 years ago, we started, a friend of mine I had been in service with got sick, and he was looking for people that could verify that he had to work around asbestos, which we all did. And he said, a bunch of us ought to get together. So we got to looking around. We found about 80 people that we knew, so we started having reunions. We just had one reunion in Texas because he was down there for his cancer checkup. And we just kind of threw it together real quick. Well, then some of the other guys from other eras, Vietnam, Korea, and whatever, they wanted to get in on it. So the following year, we had an all hands reunion in Branson, Missouri. That was in 2004. And it's just ballooned from there. We've had one every year except this year. And had some health issues going on, so we did. I'm the one who does all the reunions.
Yeah.
So I just didn't have time this year. I had 2 surgeries already. And we're going to skip and have one next year with another ship out in Colorado. And we've got about, 25 or 30, 40 guys will come to reunion. We've had them all over the country. And it's a lot of fun.
You don't do a cruise?
Mm-hmm.
As I said, my grandpa and his friends.
We did one reunion on board a ship, the USS Yorktown in Charleston, South Carolina. We spent the whole day on that one. And in Baton Rouge, we had part of our reunion on a destroyer down there. They got a memorial down there to Louisiana State Museum.
You and your wife go on a cruise or anything ever?
Yep.
I wonder, how did she think about that?
She don't like it.
She didn't like it?
She doesn't have any sea legs.
Yeah.
We took a cruise on our 25th anniversary, but she didn't like it.
Mm.
She stayed in the casino.
Oh, she doesn't like the casino. Well, I just wonder that too because my dad was in the Air Force and we flew to Vegas, so it was interesting. He had never really been on a plane much after being in the Air Force. He just didn't, and so it was interesting for him. He was thinking back to all the plane stuff. So I wondered if you had that experience.
Now we tried to
on
do
a
the
cruise.
reunions. We try to do them where it's affordable
Yeah.
because most of us are retired. I've only been retired for a year, so and most of them are on fixed incomes.
Yeah.
And we try to move them around. We have them in different places every year. We always try to have it where somebody can help us out.
Mhm. Did you join a veterans organization? Do you belong to?
I belong to several of them.
What kinds of activities does your poster association have?
Well, what do you mean?
It just says, what kinds of activities does your poster association have?
Several. I mean, I've been a life member of the VFW for almost 40 years. Commander a couple times. American Legion, been in there for 25 years. I'm post adjutant now. That's a job that nobody else wants, so I took it. Vietnam Veterans of America, I've been in there. Not real active with them, but I'd like to be, but you can't do everything.
Sure.
Navy Club, I belong to that. Fleet Reserve Association. It's for anybody that served in the Marines or the Navy. And I think that's about it. On my ship association, I pretty much run it. So that takes a lot of my time.
Yeah, this kind of goes into the next thing. How's your service or experiences affected your life? I can tell it has affected your life because you do continue to do all this stuff. Your kinsmanship, I guess, with everybody else. You've shared life, experience, and you like to keep in contact with those. It meant something to you.
Well, there's not a week that goes by somebody doesn't call my house. I'm dealing with a guy right now in Texas that his dad's on his deathbed, and they're trying to find anybody who knew his dad when he was in the Navy. It's kind of tough because the guy was in Korea. I found one guy that knows him, but didn't know him real well. So we're trying to, they're going to keep in touch with us how he does, but he's not looking good. And you get attached to some of those guys. There's guys on that ship that I didn't know them from Adam. They served on it 20 years before I did. And now they're part of the group. And I got 2 guys that one's in Massachusetts. He served on a ship in 1945 and 46. The other guy served from 46 to 47. And they knew each other when they were in, but they had not seen each other since 1947 till 2004. And the first time they saw each other at the reunion, they just cried and cried. And the last time they saw each other, it was 18, 19-year-old kids.
Yeah.
And those guys, one lives in California, and the other one lives in Massachusetts. And they each call me about once a month. They get a call from those guys. They said, we've been looking in the magazines for all these years for where the reunions were, and they found ours in the American Legion magazine. And one called me on a Saturday, and one called me on a Sunday. As soon as they got their things, and now they won't leave me alone. So, and we get attached to them because they're one of them's in the early '80s, the other guy's in the mid to late '80s. And, I
Sure.
went to actually and seen one of them out in Massachusetts. So
Um, so has anyone ever thanked you for serving your country?
the last few years, it's been changed. They weren't so nice when we came back.
You're finding newfound respect for
Yeah,
what you guys did.
yeah, yeah. When I came back that last time, I had to fly in civilian clothes. That really made me. Yeah, we weren't allowed to wear uniforms. I've still got a stuck me in the craw over that one.
That might be a reason too why you guys are so close together, because everybody wasn't happy with the way things were, but you guys had to do it. You had to, you know what I mean? You all went through that together and
Mm-hmm.
shared those same, kind of feelings and experiences and stuff. So, well, I'm glad that here lately you guys are getting treated
Finally
fine.
getting some respect over the deal. That was a sore subject with me for a long time. I'm not a Jane Fonda fan either, so.
So, did your military experience influence your thinking about war or military in general?
Yeah, we need to stay out of war.
Would you encourage young men and women to enlist today then?
I think everybody needs to be in. I never prodded my kids on it. They made their own decisions. When my daughter enlisted through college, it wasn't 6 months, a year later, my son enlisted. And then I think that was the best thing that ever happened to my kids was being in the military. They both ended up with good families, good jobs. My son learned a little more than he was kind of lazy in high school. He got cracked down when he was in service. Really made something of himself.
Having been in the military and stuff yourself, did you have any fears of like when you first heard they enlisted, or were you completely supportive from the beginning
You mean for me or for my kids?
for them? Were
Oh,
you
yeah.
worried about
At the time they were in, there was not a lot of stuff
nothing
going
really
on.
going on?
Um,
But today might be a different story.
yeah, and it was, well, we had one in California and one in North Carolina, so we were zigzagging back and forth across the country because we tried to see them at least once or twice a year. They were both gone the same 4 years. And my son came back for a year, had a really good job in Chicago, and turned around and gave it up and went back to California because he wanted to start all over. He had an apartment with a couple of his friends from the Marine Corps out in California. And his jobs just got better and better and better, and he did real good out there.
Is your view of government the same before and after your years of service?
Yeah, not too many of them I trust. I didn't know when I was in that all the stuff that was going on behind the scenes like I know now. And it's pretty much the same thing now, though. We can't be the police force for the whole world. People need to take care of their own. We need to take care of our own first.
Yeah.
I'm not against all wars. Sometimes they gotta have them, but sometimes they were for a deal for the oil. We got enough oil here. We don't need those people. They've been fighting for 2,000 years. They're gonna be fighting for another 2,000. So.
How do you feel about how war is depicted in movies?
Well, they're doing a better job of it now. Like Band of Brothers and Pacific, and I've read both the books and Flags of Our Fathers, Letters from Iwo Jima. I read a lot of World War II history, and they do a pretty good job of it because now that the things in Hollywood, they can make stuff look so realistic, but they're pretty true to the way they follow stuff out.
Have you ever watched something that you've just had to turn off because it is just irritating to you about it, or you just know that?
No, I tell you, I went and saw Platoon back probably 20, 30 years ago, and it's pretty graphic. And there was a guy sitting over there next to us. I looked over, and this guy, his tears were just coming down his cheeks. And we weren't 10 minutes into the movie. Turned and looked, and he was gone. And then when I could never stay and watch, I didn't watch the tail end of that movie. It was too sad. Uh, I don't watch a lot of Vietnam stuff because I already know what the ending's going to be.
Mm-hmm.
But I went when I was in the National Guard. We went to a movie, but we were up in Wisconsin for 2 weeks, and we had a couple guys in our outfit that had been saw some pretty bad stuff. One had been a caisson, and it was pretty rough. And we went and seen a movie at this theater. It was called Boys from Company C, and I turned around and looked, and him and another guy, these guys walked out. They couldn't stay and watch it. And I got a movie at home called Shadow of the Blade. Anybody that's been in Vietnam needs to see it. It's a documentary film. It was made about 5 years ago. And they fixed up an old Huey helicopter. And they flew it across the country. They stopped in certain places all along the way and let people ride in that thing and tell their stories. And I took it to one friend to watch, and he watched about the first 2 minutes of the show. He says, I can't watch no more. And look at another guy, he couldn't watch it. So, and it's just a documentary film, just interviewing people like we're sitting there doing now. And it just brought back too many bad memories.
Were these gentlemen that were like in the army or on the ground there, or people that were?
Yeah, one was on the ground in country, and the other guy was on riverboats, Navy guy. Mm-hmm. I suppose if I had been in their situation, I might not want to watch it either.
Yeah.
But I've sent that tape to several people I was in with to watch, and even some of them couldn't even watch it. So it's probably been played 100 times.
Were you aware of, because you guys were not maybe in all that stuff, were you kind of not aware of all of the stuff, or did you guys get the information from when you would pour,
You mean about,
of the bad stuff going on, or any of the violent stuff going on, or?
well, I knew there was stuff going on over there. I mean, we pulled out to sea every night, and you could see all the fireworks going on, the flares, and they're lighting up a lot of stuff. And when we were refueling aircraft carriers, there was jets taking off and landing the whole time we were doing it. So we knew there was something going on.
Did you ever watch a movie that you were just like, wow, I had no idea that like an accurate movie maybe that made you kind of be like, hit you like, wow, that was going on?
You mean from Vietnam?
Mm-hmm.
I've seen so many Vietnam movies, it's hard to. Boys from Company C was really sad because I would never watch it again. It was about a bunch of kids that all went to boot camp together and went to Vietnam together, and some of them got killed, and the rest of them, they just fell apart. It's pretty sad.
It doesn't sound like I want to watch that either, because I can tell it's.
Well, people were getting up and walking out of theater,
Yeah. But again, that's kind of like weird. It's a part of history. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
Information is important. People need to know things. What is your opinion of war or history that's taught in school today?
They don't teach enough of it. They're not even teaching World War II or Korea in schools now. I don't think they're teaching anything about it. It's not politically correct, I guess.
Yeah, the only thing like I said, we did do like a World War II thing. We learned about Pearl Harbor.
Yeah, right. They don't
I think
teach.
that was it.
Yeah.
Not anything about any kind of Vietnam or any of that.
They took
stuff.
the Holocaust out of the history books.
Yeah. What is the most positive thing you took away from your experience in the service?
Well, I went in there a 19-year-old kid. I came home. I was married, had a family. I grew up when I was in the service, so I think everybody ought to do it. It was a good experience for me. Yeah, because I was going nowhere before I went to service, just running around, and came home. I had a family. Been
So-
going ever since.
And what was the most negative thing you took away from it?
From my military experience.
Mhm.
I didn't like being gone for so long. We were usually gone for 6 months. My wife had a lot of trouble with that. She got homesick. She was right out of high school, pretty young. Last time we were gone for 10 months. She really didn't like that. When it come time to re-enlist, that was one of the big reasons why I didn't stay in. I didn't want to raise my family from overseas. I knew a lot of guys that had trouble with their kids, couldn't keep their kids under control, and divorce rate. You gotta go to, I guess it's all different now, I don't know.
Is there anything you'd like to add?
Mm,
I think we covered a lot of stuff.
pretty much everything.
Well, I want to thank you on behalf of the Illinois State Library today for coming in and doing that. And we have a few little items for you.
Okay.
So thank you.
Mhm.